evening, everyone, or good day, or good morning, wherever you are. It's me, Lindsay. Gary might be joining us in a minute. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. I think he is. He gave me a thumbs up earlier, so I'm hoping he's going to join us. Right, let's just go through some of the people that have already joined. So let's look at this. There's hardly anybody because even though I'm a little bit late, I'm early. Annie Hogan. Excuse me. Annie Hogan, good evening. Actually stayed awake. Marvellous. What time is it with you? Angela Garberg, evening, everyone. Bonsoir. Georgina's here. Hello, Georgie. Hello. Oh, that's a very pretty puppy. Who's that? Angie Medler's here. Hello. It's nice to see you earlier. Nice and frosty and cold where you are at the moment, but it looked bright and lovely. Hello, Catherine Brown. Good to see you. Leah's here. Hello, everyone. Ramona's here from Spain. Hello, everyone. Marianne Caffrey's here. Hello from the UK. Okay, well, what are we going to talk about tonight? There's been a rumpus on the page, isn't there? A bit of a rumpus, caused a bit of a rumpus. Oh dear. Do you know some what I see out on in the big wide world that of people that aren't in the Phoenix group, and of course when they get into the Phoenix group, that there's a little bit of a lag while people catch up with what we're saying and what we're doing. But what I see, of course, and this is the same in any walk of life, is that there are an awful lot of people making an awful lot of wrong assumptions about what we do and how we trim. And it's usually people who don't trim as well. That this massive gravy train that keeps on going from person to person to person to person. I suppose gravy train is not the right thing to say, but this chain of Chinese whispers, that's better. Gravy train, what am I on about? That goes from person to person to person, all of them jumping up in arms because they've seen a foot that doesn't look like the feet that they are used to seeing, and then therefore think that we're just a bunch of maniacs that are, trimming incorrectly. And I see so many times people saying, well, how can Bowker and Ramey be wrong? And how can all these other people like Pollitt and Van Epps be wrong? How can they all be wrong and you be right? I mean, come on, guys, how ridiculous. Please always understand. It isn't us that is right. It's Mother Nature. Because all we're doing, and it never fails, is following that hard soul plane. Oh, look, he's turned up. Which is what Mother Nature put in. Hello,
Gary. Oh, I look. Oh no, I'm not frozen anymore. I was frozen, but now I'm not frozen.
You're not.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
You're frozen. How are you? Oh, I've got hair on me.
Knackered. I was having a kip in the sheds before you took
frozen again.
When you texted me.
That's a great picture, Gary.
Oh.
Oh, having a sleep. Well, you deserve it. You've been working hard today, from what Rachel says. You've been on lots of calls. Oh, he's
yes,
still frozen.
Yeah. Oh, am I still frozen?
He's still frozen. Oh, I'm sure he'll come back in a second. Anyway, what was I saying? So people have this. I was just saying, Gary, how people have this view of HM because he's going to keep freezing. I suggest you leave, Gary, and come back. A view of HM because they don't have very much knowledge themselves. Now, I'm not dissing that. I'm just saying it's very typical of assumptions that are made. And when we have people on our workshops and when we have people doing the challenges, but particularly on the workshops, because obviously we're there with them, people come with they've seen stuff on the internet. They come with all these ideas, and you sit them down, you put a leg between their legs and a few tools in their hands, and you will go, right, get on with it. And then reality kicks in. And that reality is that they don't know very much at all about the horse's foot. So all this while, people have been saying, oh, it looks awful, or they leave long toes, or they lose my trimmer takes the toes back, or and doesn't do it like them because they're terribly long. They're all the long toe people. Just, they don't know what they're on about. They don't, because when you sit them down and you put a leg in front of them, they just don't know what we're talking about. So we have to fight our way through that, don't we? On the internet, we have to fight our way through people coming on posts and saying these things and laughing and scoffing at our posts, and without any real true understanding. You guys who follow us regularly, come onto the lives, are in the Phoenix group, know, and especially those who've done the challenges or workshops, know way more. So you can have those conversations. But of course, by the time you get to that point, you don't want to have conversations with people who haven't got a clue, because it's too hard to start from way down there again and to build it all back up, because they just don't have that knowledge yet they don't. So very typical of the equine world is everybody's a bloody expert, don't you think? Don't you think, Gary?
Everybody's an expert and everybody's got an opinion.
And I see it from their point of view, you know. I see it when they say, well, how can they all be wrong? Well, look, science moves on. People, things move on. We don't stagnate at 15 years ago and go, boop, that's it, stopped. Because the science that's being done now is just based on all of that. It's not progressing. What they're doing, they're still trying to find drugs and methods and gadgets. They're not trying to really, well, they're just simply not working it out. So, yeah. And so it is very frustrating for me when and Gary, when we hear the same old rhetoric over and over again, the same old crap over and over again about how HM are terrible. They leave. Oh my God, have you seen the state of the Hoos that HM leave their feet in? If you saw some of the stuff that we see on a daily basis when we go out trimming, especially with new clients, well, I mean, you've seen some of it on the Phoenix group, of course. But when you see it in the flesh, you have a really different appreciation of the awful hoof care that is going on out there, and how the world has the nerve to throw it down on us. I have no idea, when the experience of what we're doing is non-existent, because all the ones that don't like the way that feet look when they're rehabbing are all the ones that do PPT, right? So they're never, ever in a million years going to have experienced what we're talking about. So only those who have experienced it and properly do what we do can have a say about that. I mean, you can have a say whenever you want, but that's just an assumption, isn't it? So it's an interesting dilemma.
This is going to sound a bit big-headed, and I don't mean it to come across that way. We know that we're on a campaign to raise the standards of equine health, hoof care and health care, because they go hand in hand, don't they? But what's really frustrating is that the human brain can't open itself up to thinking that what they've done perhaps wrong, well, they have done wrong in the past, and because what is working is so far beyond what they can comprehend, it's just the shutters come down. And
yeah,
it's so hard, because I'm sure that these people want to help their horses, but they just haven't got the ability to open their mind and think for themselves.
And they can't think for themselves.
Somebody else. Don't stand behind somebody else. And we've already said it. You don't have to stand behind us.
No,
you don't. We don't want you to. What we want you to do is to implement what we suggest and then watch your horse. It's all about observing. So if we observe the hoof care over the last 100 years, nothing has got better. In fact, it's got worse, because people are trying to fix things so quickly by manipulating the feet, the body, the drugs, all of those things. We've gone down this route of having the quick fix instead of looking at nature. And oh my God, people will be going to say, oh, nature, wild, holistic, all of those buzzwords. But you know what? These horses have been on the planet a darn sight longer than we have, and they got it right.
Yeah.
We're the ones that are buggering it up.
Absolutely.
So let's go back. Let's go back and don't get stuck behind any one person. And that includes Lindsay and I. Don't get stuck behind any one person. What you've got to do is you've got to look and see for yourself. Now, if there is any one group that is putting it out there and showing, the Phoenix page has been up, what, just over 10 months?
Well, yeah, nearly
11 10 months.
It's 11 months, nearly 12, because it'll be 12 at the end of this month, won't it?
It's 12 at the end of December. Oh yeah, it's December now, isn't it? 10,500 people. Now, if we were still having this conversation back in January when we started the group, I'd be really happy to have these conversations. But in this group, in that 10 months, how many people have had huge successes with their horses? It's exploded. And of course, that's not a shock to us because we do it on a daily basis. But you have done this. You have helped yourself. You have taken that ownership on, as long as there hasn't been really shitty hoof care and there has been dire, the pedal bone is in dire straits. Thankfully, there is not as many of those. But there's still too many, for sure.
Yeah. And far too many horses with that just come to us with poor hoof care and misunderstanding. You know, so it is forever thus. It will continue but people will continue to misrepresent who we are, because they simply cannot represent us in any other way, because they don't know. Because if they don't really know anything about hoof care, full stop, these are owners that might be saying not very nice things about us. They don't. Then when they actually come to learn, if they ever come to learn this, they've got to get out of their heads and their minds all of this long toe business. They get hooked on it. They get hooked on that. They don't understand that is in fact just a healing foot. We don't want the foot to look like that. But what you can't do, you have to respect biology. And what I find so flipping shocking is that there are an awful lot of people in the equine world, I'd say the majority, who really don't understand biology of a system. And you have to appreciate why it's important to leave hoof wall on the ground. And you have to have trimmed a lot of hooves like we have in dire straits to understand the effect of removing it. And so it's going to be a big battle. It's always was, and it always will. And I understand it when people say, how can HM be right when all of these other scientists, they can't all be wrong? Well, they can actually be wrong. Is the biology behind what they've done wrong? Well, not necessarily, but their theories are not correct, and their hypothesis is not correct. That P3 rotates because it's suspended in the capsule, and that there are lever forces, and that the DDFT pulls it through the capsule. All of those things we've disproved over and over again. I have to tell you, if we hadn't, we wouldn't have the amount of success that we do. And it does look like we you know, we do have a lot of success. If there is no P3 osteonecrosis or a tiny bit and not a significant amount, and the horse and owner, or the owner, is on board, always the horses get better. Now, they may not get to the point where they are competition horses anymore, or even in some cases may not even be hacking out, but they just might be nice, happily pottering around in their herds, but they're sound enough for that and comfortable, then that's a success. You know, we don't know how to measure success in the world, and we skew those success results all the time with everything. Every bit of science that comes out, cancer research is a perfect example, where you will say that they will give you, you know, say to people how many months they think and that they're going to live, and if they live 1 day longer than the predicted usual, then that's classed as a success. Well, I'm not sure I class that as a success, but that's how the world classes it. So a lot of that has been skewed. And when you talk to vets, and they suggest various treatments, which usually are remedial shoeing, you have to ask what their success rate is and how they measure that. And if a success for them is a horse walking around in shoes that when you took him off he's crippled, that's not a success. And if they say a success is a horse that managed to live for, you know, 6 months and they thought it was going to die in 3, or 12 months and they thought it was going to die in 6, but it's been trussed up in its stable the whole time, that's not a success either.
Or you could have a laminitic horse that ends up having these remedial plastic shoes put on, and it does appear to give a fix for about maybe 6 months, maybe a little bit more. But then, is that a real fix? Of course it's not, because it's temporary.
And what we
don't want a temporary fix. We want a permanent fix. And also, I think what people have got to realize about the long toes, because that's what everybody talks about, is the reason that the long toes are there, probably for 90% of it, is because the hoof care was wrong in the first place.
And the owner doesn't know.
And the owner doesn't know that.
And if an owner...
Now, when you get the hoof care right, that is what the long toe is growing out, because 2 wrongs don't make a right.
And a big, really big distinct difference as well is that owners that go down this path know exactly what's going on and what's around the corner. When I say exactly, you know, they can't predict stuff, but they're pretty sure they're going to have this long toe that's going to grow out if they get it right and they get the hoof care right. So the owners are so much better well informed. Whereas if you go down a vet route, for instance, where you've got various people involved in that horse's hoof care, it won't be the owner. It will be the vet and the farrier fiddling about, putting heart bar shoes on to support the foot. I've never understood that. And various remedial forms of shoeing. And the owner, we talk to owners like that all the time that have had that done to their horse. And when we ask them what's going on, they can't answer us. So there's a big difference. You've got 2 groups. You've got the one group, which are the owners that we're teaching, who are rehabbing their horses and understanding now about hoof care. And then they look back at this group and go, my God, I was in this group and I didn't have a bloody clue. I thought I did, and I thought my horse was getting better, but I didn't have a clue. And then my horse died. And then I left that group and went to that group, and suddenly my eyes got opened. So that's one of the biggest changes. That's why it has to be from the grassroots. It has to be you guys. You are the ones that have to be, are changing the world. You are the ones that we're facilitating it. We're giving you the knowledge, but then you have to go out and give people that knowledge and be inspiring and lead by example. And I can see Melanie's here tonight, and Melanie's been a bit of a star for us, hasn't she, over the last few days because of her horse Honey, and she went and had those X-rays, which we talked about in the last live. And I did a little quick video, and I put it up on the page today. And Melanie's, you know, jumping about. She's here tonight. Look, Melanie, hello, from Pennsylvania. She's jumping about because not only has she got her horse back, which is huge, right? Not only has she got that, she did it herself. And even if you can't do it yourself, if you have the knowledge to go through it with somebody and help them get to that point, I mean, it's just incredible. It's an incredible feeling. It's what keeps us, me and Gary, going, and all the others, amongst this sea of hell that we're in, this swamp. It's what keeps us going because we get the buzz from the highs. And luckily for us, we see far more highs than the vets and farriers do, because we are not approaching it from their mindset. We approach it from a completely different mindset. And it sounds, I think I said this in the last podcast, it sounds lame when you go, well, no, I'm not going to put that heart bar or rocker shoe on. No, I'm not going to take the laminae off and bring the brake over back. No, I'm not going to wedge the heels up. Oh, what are you going to do? Not a lot. Balance the foot. Balance the foot to the horse's natural foot. And then they just look at you because it's like, doesn't compute. No, we're humans. We need to involve ourselves and we need to intervene and be seen to be doing it. How on earth are we going to charge a fortune if all we're doing is turning up and balancing a horse's foot? Huh? Doesn't compute. It's going to be very difficult as we move forward, trying to get people to do that. But the more of you that do it, and the more successes we get, and the more, and there will be, over and over, and it doesn't stop, by the way, it just keeps on growing. The successes will just keep on coming because, and we're that confident, we go out on YouTube live 2 or 3 times a week, and anybody can turn up and ask us questions. We are that confident about what we do. How many other methods, knowing ours isn't a method, are confident enough that they could do that, or would even dare to put themselves in that spotlight? Not many, clearly, because they ain't doing it. It's just us, don't you think? Talking about you wonderful people, let's carry on saying hello. Where did I get to? Jenny Cox, good morning from Australia. Good morning. Claire Collins is here. Hello. Annie Hogan says, same as you, but up at 4 a.m. I can see why you'd be sleepy. Julie Bradbury's here. Hello from 2 screens in Scotland. Hello. We were only talking about the Indians in Aberdeen that we had last night, weren't we? Oh, God.
Oh, yes. We were reliving them, weren't we? Yeah. With the sausage casserole.
We were reliving them while we were eating a sausage casserole.
And a little tipple.
Tara's here. Hello. My dog's barking because the cats are scrabbling about in Pinky's biscuit box. I can hear them doing it. It's Flopsy. And so Pinky's warning me and telling me, Mother! I'll have to get up and sort them out in a minute. The only me amigo. Good evening from Lanzarote. Hello. We've said hello to Melanie. Tula's here from Finland. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a froggy tickle in my throat. Janine's here. Janine Phipps. Hello all. Becky Bragg. Hello. Jade's here from Minnesota. Hello, Jade.
Hi, Jade.
Vicky's here. Good morning, everyone from Australia. We were wondering where you were.
Vicky.
Jade says, hit that like button to feed the algorithm. Yes, please, folks. Don't forget to like, and subscribe if you can. If you can't, that's okay. But please like, because it helps the algorithm and it pushes these valuable lives by us 2 strange nutters out to more horsey people.
Speak for yourself.
Janine says, my vet suggested PTS. Because PTS is
that's common, unfortunately, because their arsenal is they've used their toolbox is empty. Yeah, whichever analogy that you want to use, the drugs haven't worked, the box threads haven't worked, the heart bar shoes haven't worked, taking them away from their friends haven't worked. All of the things that's why, and this is a numbers game, isn't it? If there isn't significant osteonecrosis in the pedal bone and significant arthritis, our success rate is 98, 99%, or even 100%. And I know that's brave to say, but vet and farrier success rate long term is
very, very
95% for failure rate.
It's very poor. And you have to,
even if you don't believe us on what we're doing and what we're saying, you as a horse owner, when you get a treatment plan from anybody, including us, what you want to do is ask them, what are the success rates? What are the numbers? If you were to go to the doctors and you got diagnosed with something, wouldn't you say, right, what are my options? And you've got 3 options, and what is the success rate for each of those options? You would do that, wouldn't you?
You would, but also knowing that, like I said, that success rate is skewed. And in the equine world, success is viewed as a horse looks like it walks off better. And it's stuck in heart bar shoes and rocker shoes.
Yes. But that's temporary fix, isn't it? And people have got to realise that is a temporary fix.
But they don't.
But they don't, because they don't ask the questions.
They don't know what to ask.
No. It's a minefield, isn't it? It's a minefield.
It is, which is why they need to come here and watch what we're saying, isn't it?
Oh, indeed.
Tara says, talking about observing, it is so flipping interesting how the hoof changes shape, and not necessarily in a way that pleases the eye, but after X amount of HSP trims, they look more regular in shape. See? We've always said this. It's so organic and dynamic. It never stays static. It's always wanting to get to the healthiest part of itself, the healthiest bit of itself. It's always trying to be that. Always. And it's us that gets in the way with buggering up trims and giving them shitty diets and getting in the way with keeping them in stables, etc. We are the ones that get in the way. They want to find health. And so when you start trimming a foot that has never had this kind of hoof care, it's amazing watching it change. It really is.
And we see it so often. I was talking to somebody the other day, and the shoes had been off. It was actually today. The shoes had been off since March, and the horses have been on track since July or August. And I just looked at the pre-trim photos, and you can just see the health of that foot growing in. You can just see that it might look a little bit weird because it's got a few angle changes, but everything is where it's supposed to be. There was flare when the shoes came off. When the diet changed, you could see there was another little event line where things got a little bit better. And at the top, if you were to cover over the bottom, you would say, oh my God, that's a really nice foot. And at the bottom, it just looks a little bit as though it's been plasticized a little. It looks a bit wavy. But you know what? The coronary band is straight at the front, and it's nice and curved, going back to the heel, not curved, but sloping back to the heels. But that's still got to grow out. It's just phenomenal. And this horse may have slightly off-putting looking feet, but this horse is sound on all surfaces.
And
It's
sometimes when owners have been used to very neat looking feet in shoes, not the
yes.
feet that the horse needs, but these feet have looked neat and tidy to their eye, because obviously they don't understand hoof care. And then we take the shoes off and they go into all kinds of funny distortions. Cracks will suddenly grow out. You've got these massive cracks. Foot looks neat and tidy with these huge cracks up the horse's foot. You take the shoe off, the cracks start to disappear because you're balancing it properly and the forces are more properly distributed. But the foot looks weird. It starts to twist and you get flares and you get medial flares or lateral flares. And it just begins to the eye. It freaks them out. It freaks owners out. Oh my God, that's not what my horse's feet look like. And of course, anybody else who's looking who equally doesn't have that information or knowledge also looks down and goes, oh no. And we're going, yes, the foot is finally finding itself. You've got to let the foot find itself. You really, really have. It's so important. And be constant.
And we've said before, and we don't mind repeating it, the way the hoof reacts to following the constants of the foot is so predictable.
Oh my God.
The reason that people come to us is because we go to them, we might take the shoes off, or they might be laminitic, or they may have had really crap hoof care. And we can show them examples of, right, this is what you're going to expect. And this is what likely is going to happen to your horse's feet over the next 6 to 12 months. And that is what sets them up to succeed. It's because the foot reacts so predictably. It's not us that's doing that. It's the horse fixing itself as much as it can, If you've had a horse that's been tightly shod for 15 years, is it going to have a really big expansion at the back of the foot as if it would have done if it hadn't have had shoes on for 15 years? No, it's not. But it will give to a degree, and it will be the best that it can be for that individual horse. Every time.
But we've got to set it up, right? And
Got to set it up.
It's like, it's like Alcoholics Anonymous. You have to put the effort in. You can't expect others to do this for you. You have to put the effort in if you want that change. And why do I use that as an example? Because it's so easy to fall off the wagon. It's so easy when you start getting a horse that has had lots of problems and it starts to improve, and you're doing all these changes, which, let's face it, are quite difficult initially because you've done it the other way for so long, and the horse starts going really well. Start creeping in. Do you think I could just put it in the middle for a few hours a day? And that ends up being half a day, and that ends up being 3 or 4 days a week, and that ends up being most weeks. And then they wonder why we start going backwards again. And then you've only got to do that 2 or 3 times and watch it go downhill and come back again before you go, do you know what? I'm not doing that to my horse again. I'm not doing that to my horse again. And of course, every time you do it, you weaken that horse's ability to heal. Just a little bit every time, just a little bit more every time. That horse is going to be having an issue, a little bit more. So let's go through some more of the things. Tara says, trust the process. Dawn says, hi, Hoofing family from Wales. Lynn's here. Hello. Garvin Ranch. Howdy hey from Ellie Garvin in Wisconsin. Hello, Ellie. Bonnie's here. Hello, Bonnie. Hi from Montana, says Bonnie. Oh, Timmy's here. Hello, darling. See you later. Timmy Tots. Joe Kirk's here. Good morning, team, says Joe. Good morning, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Dawn says probably 90% of horses have probably had heart bar shoes fitted at some point in their lives. Sadly, a great deal have, and they're seen as preventative nowadays. You wouldn't believe how big Woody's hooves are now to when he was shod. Right, that's huge. You know, and like we say, that wobble effect of having that tiny, very shortened surface area thing they're walking on, the hoof that they're walking on with this big leg above it. They need a big surface area. So when everybody's freaking out on the internet and going, oh, long toe people, and and they celebrate the fact that their professional brings the toe back, think about it. They have not a clue that they're shortening that surface area, because if they're bringing the toe back, you know they're not taking the heels down to the hard sole plane. So there's all these horses everywhere walking around with a reduced surface area, and that's massive for them. It's not pleasant. But they put up with it, a lot of them, until eventually they can't, and we wonder why.
And also, if you're talking about a maintenance trim, it is about it. It is. You do take the toe back. We take the toe back because it's about balance.
Explain that, though, Gary. We don't. What they mean is they take the toe off.
Take the toe back. It's like they're doing that.
Yes, we don't.
What we're doing is balancing from that.
Yes, and then that takes that vertical height.
It takes that vertical height down. So,
and of course, as that vertical height is going down and this is going down, this part of the hoof wall then needs to be removed.
Yes.
And before you know it, you've got a shortened hoof capsule, but a hoof capsule that is enough for the horse to stand on.
Yes. Yes.
Again, going back to what I said at the beginning, the top of the show, so many people offer judgment,
and they don't
know a clue what they're talking about.
They don't know, and they haven't tried it.
Not a clue. Haven't tried it.
They don't know, and they haven't tried it.
But don't know about their own horse's foot.
No.
You know, it doesn't matter who we come up against. It doesn't matter whether they are farriers that have been in the business for a long time, or whether it's a vet that's been in the business, or a new vet, or anyone, or physios, or body workers, or anyone. Nobody can have that sensible conversation about why what we do can't possibly work, because they've never tried it. If Gary stood up and went, well, look, Lindsay, I've got a bone to pick with you about some of the stuff that you told me that doesn't happen out there. So, and I know that because I've tried it. Well, now that could be a conversation, but not with somebody who's never tried it, who resorts straight back to shaping the foot because it looks better, and then less people are going to complain. They're all going to say what a wonderful job and clap, and you're going to feel good and feel all great about it. The poor flipping horse who you've gone to, that they aren't feeling great about it, but they're putting up with it because they do, until they can't put up with it any longer. And then they fall off the edge of a cliff fast. The amount of times that I've been called out to somebody who says to me, the 15-year-old horse that's crippled, that I've never been to before, and they say to me, I don't know why, it's never had laminitis before. And it's been an insidious, gradual, horrible deformation of that horse's feet, as well as usually a diet and management issue. But remember that the change, the real crippling aspect that we see more so than anything else is horses walking around on the tip of P3. It's the video I put up today, and the video that I put up the day before of those two case studies of Melanie's and Maisie, of Christie's horse. Again, both of those horses were walking around on parts of their foot they shouldn't have been, and it bloody hurts, and you can see it, right? They don't look, they're going, oh, and I don't want to put my foot down. Imagine that. Imagine having to do that, walking around on a part of your body you're not meant to, and you can't escape it, over and over and over and over and over. Every step you take, it's how we are able to bring some horses back from the brink when they've been in that position for a very long time. I'll never know. That's a huge testament to the horse and how resilient they can be. Because you look at some of these horses and you think to yourself, God, I don't know if you saw Gary.
Agony for so long. But when you turn up, and this happened to me on my recent visit to the UK, 2 horses I saw in what, a 12-day period. That's too many, isn't it? 2 horses in a 12-day
You
period.
only trimmed 2?
Where
God,
these...
that's really lazy, Gary. That's incredible.
And these horses were so sweet. They were affectionate.
Oh, I know.
They were absolute darlings, but they were just in so much pain they could hardly move. It just, all because people have got it wrong. And I have to say, the majority of that is with the professionals that these people called on.
And the owners not having a clue.
And the owners not having a clue.
Because there's no way, if some professional came to your place now and left your horse in that, you wouldn't allow it, because you can see it now.
No, of course.
So you're like, no. No.
Not a chance, you sod off.
Not a chance. Not a chance. I understand it. It's huge. The misinformation, misrepresentation, it is huge out there. And the vets don't know, the farriers don't know. And I mean, I know people will watch this. I know people will be watching this, go, how dare they say that? I've been a farrier for 25 years. How dare? Of course I know what that I'm doing. Not when it comes to what we're doing, which is giving the horse its natural foot back. Very, very few. Although I have to say, I think that is starting to change a little bit, because from what we're hearing, there are farriers, etc., who are watching and implementing and seeing how it goes. Because what else have they got to lose? Everything else has failed, right? So they try something else. And then when they try this, they're like, do you know what? Dang, I fully expected that horse to be tripping and sore, because I've been told it tears the lever forces tear the laminate, and it isn't doing any of those things. Actually, it's improving. It's improving.
As long as it's done right.
It's just
as long as it's done right.
So bloody simple. It really is. The concept is so simple. It's, you don't have to play with all these angles and apps and lines and degrees. You don't have to do that. You just have to give the horse the foot back, and they will do it all for you, because they're all slightly different in terms of where it's right for them. And it's quite a narrow window, but no matter what, you need to let them guide you, not the other way around. And that's, unfortunately, there are our 2 opposing sides, right? We let the horse do it and guide us. And in the other side of the world, they are trying to guide the horse, manipulate the horse's foot to do what they want it to do, because it doesn't look right. Hearing that lovely vet when we were at the Beck's Nairn clinic in Ireland, at her just, how do you know what your farrier is doing is right? And her response with starry eyes was, because he's a good farrier. And I said, how do you know? She went, because other people say he is. That's it's I constantly have to pinch myself because I can't believe that the foundations of the equine world are so shaky. It's on a foundation of rubble. There's no big pillars of support there in the foundations of the equine world. It's on rubble, and it's very movable, and people are playing around all the time, and it does amuse me when they say, oh, how can HM be right? How dare they go out, oh, everybody else is wrong, right? How do you wouldn't even know anyway, because you've got no clue, because you don't know. Come and have a conversation with me. Come and sit me in an elevator that's stuck halfway between the 5th and the 6th floor with a bunch of horse owners that have come to a conference, and we sit there and we'll all sit on the floor and we'll all start talking about Hoof. Do you reckon they'd all know what they were talking about? Would they? How?
Well, we're trying to change that.
Oh, we
because it's the horse owners that are going to change the world, and then the pros will follow.
Oh,
That's
it's definitely. And we had
That's
this.
the way it will happen.
Oh, well, they'll have to. They will not have a choice.
Because otherwise they won't have an income.
They won't have an income. They won't have a choice.
And also, it'll give them the opportunity to see. It'll give them the opportunity to see. There is the opportunity for them to see the success. They're just not talking about open-mindedness again. They're not open-mindedness to actually stick their neck out, or the majority aren't, let's say, to stick their neck out and to just go slightly against the 50-year-old book, the old science, because the old science, or a lot of it, is just outdated, hasn't been proven in the real world. I suppose you could say it's been loosely been proven in a lab, but that's not the real world, is it?
No. Shall I? Bex won't mind me doing this because she sent it to me, but Bex Nairn sent me an extract from a book, and we went and we had to go and find out where this book came from, because this extract was sent to her by her vet, because her vet follows us now, and Bex and her vet were having a very big conversation about it, because, as you know, Bex Nairn was having awful problems with one of her horses in particular, and she tried all sorts of things and it didn't work until she finally went, well, look, I'll give it a go, and trimmed the way that we were suggesting, and her mare got better. So she sent me this extract. Now, this is written, we found out it was written in 1969. Spookily, that's when I was born. Spooky. And it was written by a Dr. O.R. Adams, who was a vet in the States. And he wrote this book about lameness. It's called Lameness in Horses. If you want to go and look it up, it published by, hold on a second, I can tell you. It was published by, oh, no, maybe I can't tell you. No, it was published by Lee and Febiger, if you could say, if that's how, Lea and Febiger, Febigr, publishing, and in 1969. And, well, shall we just have a look and see what he says, shall we? Shall we just have a look and see what he says? Right, let's bring it up. Now, before I bring it up, please bear in mind that it's a bit confused, okay? That he isn't saying exactly what we are saying, but the premise is that P3 rotation can be corrected by hoof capsule manipulation. Now, that's not really that new, except for the fact that the other side of it is this, belief that all the other things that are going on. So let's go and have a look. In fact, hold on a second. I'm going, no, it's fine. We can do that. Let's go have a look at this. All right. Tell me if you can see that. Yeah? I'll blow it up. I'll blow it up.
If you blow it up, then people, if they're on their mobiles, they can see it better.
Okay, you can see that. We'll read it through, right? This is story time with Lindsay. Are you sitting comfortably? Got a little drink with you? Let's begin. Once upon a time, an important part of the treatment of horses with chronic laminitis is foot care to prevent further rotation initially. Starts off very well, doesn't it? I mean, he's just said it right there. And later to establish a more normal anatomic alignment of the hoof wall and sole with the distal phalanx. Remember, this was 1969. Controversy surrounds the best approach for trimming and shoeing the foot. Can you see my arrow?
Yeah.
That is beginning to rotate. Okay, so therefore he's now saying, right, this is controversial. And in the process of rotating, or has rotated, traditionally, the heel has been lowered to re-establish a normal weight-bearing association of the distal phalanx with the sole and ground surface. Now, he says that, but then we're going to get a little bit more confused in a moment. But that's just completely popped out of the window, even though that was originally what the idea was, right? Shortening the toe serves to reduce the tearing forces, he says. However, lowering the heel has been shown to increase the tension of the deep digital flexor tendon, which increases the tensile forces that are partially responsible for rotation of the distal phalanx. So he still, at this point, is offering the suggestion that this DDFT is pulling, and if we raise the heels, we'll take the tension off it, it'll stop it pulling. Of course, it doesn't have anything to do with it, as we well know. Elevating the heel, on the other hand, decreases the tension of the deep digital flexor tendon, so they believe. Then he comes in. However, elevating the heel and shortening the toe serves to bring the distal phalanx further out of alignment. Yee-haw! Which tends to focus compression weight-bearing forces on the extensor process. Nobody ever talks about that, except for us. That if you are doing that with the foot, then the bit at the front, the tendon at the front's like, and secondarily, here we go, on the tip of the distal phalanx. Theoretically, this increases. Now, he says theoretically, we have proven it not to be a theory. Theoretically, this increases the chances of the distal phalanx rotating further and the tip of the distal phalanx penetrating the sole. Okay, he's not talked about P3 sinking in the capsule, which is the rhetoric today, or the word that is given today, the way it's explained today. He doesn't talk about that. He's saying if you manipulate the hoof capsule, you are going to put P3 potentially in danger, and you're going to increase the chance of rotation and that tip penetrating the sole. He says which of these techniques is superior is unknown and will only be clarified by further objective control study. Isn't that interesting? Because what's the technique that's taken over? This one, the one where they believe it's the DDFT, and this technique down here, which is effectively what we're doing, has kind of been forgotten about, right? So let's move on. Let's carry on what he's saying. Ooh, can you still see it? There's Bex's little face up there. Look, she's on a horse.
Yeah, if you can blow it up, that'd be good. Oh, that's good. That's cool. That's cool.
Okay, so we've lost a little bit here, but we're going to move on. The basic principle of foot treatment includes trimming and shoeing, well, obviously not, to re-establish the normal alignment of the distal phalanx and hoof wall. Again, that's not so crazily, I mean, there's a bunch of people going around in the world going, yeah, but then they've got a load of other stuff wrong, and they're not really focusing on stopping it from rotating because they think that that's laminitis, and protecting the painful sole from pressure from trauma. How many times have we said that? To re-establish some normal alignment of the distal phalanx for the hoof wall, excessive hoof wall is removed. Additionally, do you see what he's just said there? To re-establish some normal alignment of the distal phalanx for the hoof wall, excessive hoof wall is removed. We see that all the time.
Chop the toe off.
Yeah. Additionally, it is helpful, he does think, to trim the toe from the ground surface proximate to decrease the pressure on this sensitive region. That's what he's saying here. Okay, he got that wrong. That's not correct. We found that to be an issue. Both will reduce the rotation and tearing forces, because they still believe it as a tearing force, on the suspensory apparatus within the foot. Although it is controversial, most recommend a lowering of the heels if sufficient heel is present to align the distal phalanx parallel to the ground surface. So we're not aiming for ground parallel. We're aiming for what the horse wants us to, is showing us. But with Melanie's horse at this moment in time, she's showing that she is almost ground parallel, in fact. And of course, on load bearing, she is. Trimming of the now listen to this bit. Trimming of the sole should be done very carefully to avoid this sensitive region. So he's saying, people trim it. You got to be careful. The area, I love this bit. The area just in front of the apex of the frog should not be pared out, for this may expose the dermal laminae associated with the tip of the distal phalanx. Therefore, trimming and rasping lines for the heel area should not pass the apex of the frog. I literally have never seen that written anywhere or talked about, except with us. And I have to tell you that nobody taught me that, obviously, because it's something that we had to work out. But it's almost like he is using the exact same language as me. So this guy was getting there. He was getting there. He was starting to get it. I don't know what happened. I don't know the history of him. I've tried to find out a little bit more about him. But he was starting to understand that there's these different ideas about how you deal with rotation. One of them's all about the DDFT, and we found out now a 69. So what's that? 50 years later, 55 years later.
55 years later.
We've found out that doesn't work, and you've been banging on about that now for years. Pack it in. Now go the other way. Go the other way, the other part of that he talked about. Don't put strain on the extensor tendon. Put the foot back into the right position. And don't touch the apex of the frog, because he contradicts himself. Because at one moment he's talking about taking the toe away to relieve pressure on that sensitive area, which of course it's not going to, because that means it forces that area to be under pressure. And then he says, don't touch it. If you touch it before in front of the apex of the frog, you're going to be in deep trouble, right? That part of it's been lost. Clearly, they had an idea. There is only so much you can do to a hoof capsule. So I have to say to you, I'm not the first person that's walked this earth and gone, oh, that's the way to do it. Of course I'm not. I'm one of the first people on the earth, other than Jamie Jackson and the people that studied the natural foot. I'm one of the first people on the earth to understand about how important pillars of support are. But then going further than the teachings that I was taught, where we talk about feedback mechanisms, and if you take that away, we experience a growth rate change, and therefore then it's so easy for that P3 to rotate, because the hoof capsule goes out of alignment so quickly. But anyway, Beck sent that to me, and she went, I'm not sure if you've seen this, which I hadn't, but my vet shared this with me, because this was being talked about back then, and then we were Googling it, finding out who wrote it, and ChatGPT helped us out a little bit, and who went and did the detective work and found out that it was Dr. Adams in 1969 in a book called Lameness in Horses. And let me just show you the diagram that's in that book that goes with what he's talking about. Let me just show you this. Not that different to some of the diagrams I show you, I have to say. Now, this top one here, this A, it's an odd diagram because the heel's not on the ground. So that I'm not quite sure, but I guess it doesn't matter. Well, I'm assuming that line there is the ground, but I don't think it is. And what he's doing here is he's saying, look, the heel needs to come back, and then you've got this area that needs to be taken off, but you've got to be careful over here. And then this is the example he's giving. So here's the apex of the frog, which is just here. And he's saying, don't touch it beyond the apex of the frog. But of course, this diagram doesn't suit that because you have done that. But you get the idea of what he's trying to say, right? You look at the coronary band here. It's practically horizontal. And then here, it isn't. And you get what he's trying to get across, that the bones are not changing. P3 is just rotating. And then I don't know what these two little holes are meant to be in there, but then you get this. And of course, this, we found out that this is a no-no. And he puts here, a dotted line indicates where the hoof should be trimmed to re-establish a more normal alignment of the distal phalanx and hoof wall. The toe should be also trimmed slightly to decrease the pressure in this region because they think it was tearing the laminate. We've moved on after trimming a shoe, blah, blah, blah. And that's obviously what a shoe, with when they're talking about corrective shoeing. But of course, it's not there. We know it's not entirely there. But the point is, the theory, it was being explored. Where's it gone? Why has it taken so long for people to go, oh my God, I didn't look at those awful dirty long toes, dirty, nasty, horrible, get them away from me, gross, not looking at those. And we go, look, see, that's not tripping. Look at the horse, doing really well. Let it grow out. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be fine. No lever forces, no tearing forces. It can't happen. I thought I'd share that with you. It's interesting, isn't it? And then the next book will come out. It'll be mine. Georgie says, it's so much easier to explain to non-horse people. Horse people are in complete denial. It's only because they don't know. Because horse people are quite happy to say, I've no idea, Georgie. How does it work? Tell me. And then they sit there and lap it up and go, because they don't have any preconceptions. And they just, all that they know is, well, I just thought all horses needed to be shod if they went on rows. And you go, no, you don't have to. And then you explain it and they're like, that makes sense. You try and explain that to somebody who's into horses and they're like, oh, no, my horse will wear its feet off. What? Of course it's not going to do that. Yeah, it's going to, where are the bloody nubs? Yeah, my horse needs shoes. It's important to support him. I beg your pardon, can't the ground support him? The shoe needs to do the supporting? I don't understand that. I've never understood that. What support are you talking about? When vets want to put shoes on, when they want to take half a foot away, and usually if they're taking it away at the quarters, and Bethan and I were having this conversation. I see Bethan and Farmer Dana here. We were having this conversation, and then they say, we'll put a shoe on to support it. You're like, why are you trying to support an area that's meant to be passive? I don't understand. And of course, they don't have an answer to that because they don't know that area is meant to be passive. I would love to get stuck in an elevator with you, Lindsay and Gary. I have so many questions and would love chatting with you. He's a bit like a man, though. He's not allowed to fart in the car. We're driving along to workshops, but he does try, and we go mental because, of course, we don't do that. Being female, it doesn't ever happen to us. We don't fart.
Yeah, right.
We'd never fart, except for Asha, when occasionally she Let us off a massive ripe one and we all nearly die. Farmer Dan, evening. She'd die if she heard me say that. Beth and said, just testing to see if my comments work. It works. Did you have to log in? Don't touch anything beyond the apex of the frog. The first thing you taught me when I started rehabbing. Yeah. The very first thing I said.
It's the rehabbing. And when there's no hoof wall on the ground.
That's right.
I think so many people have got it wrong because they say, don't touch anything past the apex of the frog. But you can't do that forever.
No.
You can't do that forever.
Dr. Adams probably got assassinated for figuring it out. I don't know what happened to him. But yeah, you know, he was, if just imagine if me and Dr. Adams got locked in an elevator. Did they have elevators back then? They did, didn't they? If me and Dr. Adams got locked in an elevator between the 5th and the 6th floor, I don't know why it has to be between the 5th and the 6th floor, but seems about right. And we started having that conversation. I guarantee Dr. Adams would leave that elevator on the 5th floor when it finally got to it and went, I know, and now this is what we're going to test. And just imagine if I could go back in time, right? And I could meet, you know, what on and Back to the Future. I could go back in time and I could meet Dr. Adams, and I somehow managed to lock him in, because I couldn't just take him for a cup of coffee because it'd be too easy for him to leave. It would have to be locked in an elevator, so we'd have to fix it, and we'd be locked in an elevator. Just imagine if I could do that. And I could have gone back all that time, because he was really well known back in the day in the States. Lots of people, you know, really, you know, listened to him. This guy was writing books, for goodness sake. Imagine if I could do that. Just imagine what would change in the world, how it would have changed, because you would come out of there and go, what? You tell me that in 2024, in 55 years' time, you are doing this and the world hasn't caught up yet? No, Dr. Adams, the world hasn't caught up yet. And you already had that spark in your mind. He'd be like, wow. So what's going on in the world in 2024? Well, it's a shit show. Horses are dying all over the place and being put to sleep. And no vet knows anything about how to trim a horse's foot unless they've done it when they left college and taught it themselves, or somebody else taught it to them. What? He'd say? You're joking. He might not say it in such a Bristolian accent. He might not say you're joking. But he'd be gobsmacked, right? So he'd leave that elevator and he'd go out into the world and he'd say, no more raising their heels, bloody DDFT's got nothing to do with it. No more chopping off the toe because there's no lever forces. Don't be ridiculous. Let's just give the horse their foot back. Put P3 back into the right position. And he'd go, so what you're telling me, Lindsay, is laminitis? Eating green grass didn't cause P3 to rotate? No, it didn't. That was the crappy hoof care. Did it make the foot poorly? Well, yeah, and the horse. But did it move the bone? No. No. And he'd leave that elevator a changed man. And the rest of the world and millions of horses would have been saved.
Yep.
Sadly, that's not what
happened. The sad reality.
That's not what happened. And here we are 55 years later, and they're still like going, the DDFT's pulling P3 through the capsule.
Oh, God, I hope it's not going to take us 55 years, Linz. We'll be over 100.
I've got to write that book, Gary. I've got too many other things to do.
Over 100 in our Zimmer frames. It can't take that long, surely.
No. Marianne says we should crowdfund a DeLorean. Yes, we should.
Very good. Very good.
We should get a DeLorean and go back in time. Oh my God. Oh my God. Please write a book. I will. I promise I will. Lindsay, why don't you publish a PhD? You would have an army of us to assist you. Then the professionals would have to listen. Yeah? But
maybe on the list.
It's on the list. It's on the. It's like when you see those. I think I did it in Harry Potter, I think, or when you're at some point and they go like that, and the scroll goes, and all the way down the floor.
That's the list.
Number 1. Don't touch the soul beyond the apex of the frog. It's number 1, everybody. That's number 1. You write it down now, quick. Number 2. How many have we got here, Lindsay? 3,000. Anyway, that was fun. I'm glad we talked about that. I was dying to. I was going to put it out on the public page, but yeah. Oh, Dawn says put my name down one in the future. Yeah. All right, my lovelies. We will love you and leave you. We're going to say goodbye now. And incidentally, I've been watching a good just to leave it on a completely nothing to do, because we used to talk about Netflix back in the day, didn't we? I've been watching a program called now I can't remember it now. After the Party, that was set in New Zealand. Is set in New Zealand, in Wellington, in New Zealand. It's very good. I've got the last 2 episodes. I'm going to watch them tonight. So yeah. Bethan says, Cyrus says good night. Good night, Cyrus, my darling. I hope you have a good night.
How you doing?
Sleep well, mate. And we'll see you soon, pal. Lots more trimming of feet. All right then, everyone. Take care now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. See you soon.